Found a buttload of homes.
Hello. Why not? Tumor asked me not to chuck paydays, so we'll do 2 weeks worth next week when she's back.
Yeah, that's probably
I came here for
my
nothing?
insurance.
What's that?
I came here to get payday, otherwise why am I here?
Is it the liability insurance?
I don't know if we don't offer any value. What was it on? YouTube?
Yeah, I found it on YouTube.
Okay. Thank you for bearing with us. This is a last minute operation here. Mainly put on by Jacob, so it's not my fault.
The guy picks nose on TNT.
What is-
Here comes the judge.
The guy picks nose on TNT and owns it.
Is it DA or the?
The. It's from 1968, before the.
And where did you find this? Here comes the judge.
Yeah. You know me. I'm sorry.
Take it easy.
Do you know how many
Is this it? Which one is it? This one.
That one.
What was it? What were you?
Okay.
I'm terrible. I'm
Take
sorry,
me.
Joe.
You are terrible. How dare you?
Put the lights on so we can see that.
Very
Sunshine it might make a difference.
I know, right?
flattering.
That did Geraldine.
Okay, so anything that we need to cover before I bring in the man of the hour? Anything at all? Anything we want to talk about? Will you monitor this volume in case it blasts on us?
Should we plug our ears just in
Yeah.
case?
You trust me with that?
Yeah. Let's see if we have. I want to make sure we have sound. Oh, we have sound.
If there's underlined blue.
Okay, perfect.
Are you good?
I'm gonna make a proposition. Change it.
What's your proposition?
Jacob, get
Are we ready? Okay, I'm gonna let this thing go, and here we go.
Turn the lights off, Joe.
We got. All rise. All rise. The Honorable Judge Jacob.
Alright, that was the effect. Thank you. Thank you. That was his request, by the way. Okay. For those of you that are old enough to remember laughing, here comes the judge. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so who has some questions? I think we should have had some handed out here earlier today. Hey, Joe? We're working on those right now. Joe? You will be remanded to custody. We can do that. The question was, do I have to do anything special if I write an offer on a house that's on well and septic? And this is an issue that's come up several times lately. And I suggested it's a really good idea to go ahead and get the septic test done right away and get your well flow done right away, and you can have the water quality test done afterwards. Water quality is good for what, 90 days? And the other is good for 6 months. Okay?
2 years now.
It's 2 years.
Is it 2 years now? Thanks, that's right, because you kind of became an expert on it there. Yep. And when you're showing properties that are on wells and septics, people, please be proactive and check it out for your clients. There's several decent websites to go to. One of them is in Flex. Does everybody know where on the front page of Flex where you go on the MLA well and septic info? Personally, I just have Garness Engineering website in my favorites and click on that. And you can probably get real good information about the place that you're going to show by checking out the surrounding properties if they have more recent well and septic information on them. You know, maybe the place you're going to show hasn't had a test done in 10 or 15 years, but it could be the guy right next door that sold last year. And so that information will be very helpful. Okay? Yeah?
I'd like to see your eyes.
Okay.
Okay, no, all right, so do you want to address the fact, the Muni Rules
Yeah.
versus?
Yeah. That's a
versus-
good point.
If it's a cash sale. and there's
In the
lender
Muni, anywhere in the municipality of Anchorage, you have to have the COSA. which we used to call the blue sheet you get from the municipality. It's the health authority approval form. It is against municipal code to transfer title on a property that's on a private well and septic in the municipality without that. I'm not sure exactly what they do to you, but I'm sure there's a lot of liability for us. It's a misdemeanor for sure. So
Even when it's a cash offer.
even if it's a cash offer, even if everybody signs waivers, be seated. And it comes up. Outside the Muni, you can waive any kind of inspections. People do it all the time. I think it's a great idea to get a waiver where everybody says, I am probably not being real smart here, and I'm waiving my right to have, at the very least, a Department of Environmental Conservation testing done on this. Okay? Next question? Hi.
No, just.
What does bulletproof a transaction Q?
I have no idea. I wanted to have a little discussion about this. I wanted some input from everybody here, because this is something we talk about a lot, all the time, bulletproofing the transaction. And I've seen a couple deals fall apart recently for reasons that you would just not even imagine that they fell apart. We recently had a listing fall apart because the listing agreement was filled out improperly. And our licensee actually lost the listing because of it.
Wow.
Yeah, and the house is sold fast. So, you know, Denny, I like what you say. If there's a blank, fill it in. And you know, there's a reason for all those blanks, and they all make sense. On the new listing agreement, on the first page there where it talks about the commission, does everybody get that you don't put the same number in both spots? Right? I see a fair number where it'll say 3% in both of those spots. That means all the commission's going to the selling agent. So if you're doing a 6% listing, it should say 6% in the first spot and then 3%, I suppose, or whatever you're going to pay the selling side in the other spot. Right now, there is so much more pressure on transactions because of limited inventory and the increased activity that you know, people are going to be looking for ways to blow up deals because maybe they think they can get a better deal. And if you're a listing agent, you're not doing your client a very good service if you're letting a buyer get out of a deal because you forgot to extend a date or you didn't pay attention to some dates or something like that. I think it's critical now that you really pay close attention to it. Probably more so now than it was 6 months ago. Any comments on that? Go ahead.
I think another thing is very important to have that fierce conversation with your seller, that they expect delays, that the underwriting process is the most frustrating part of the contract. It's not the buyer's fault, it's not the seller's fault. Typically, expect some obstacles. I say it's like planning a road trip to Florida, and that we know basically how long it's going to take on average, but inevitably you run into road construction. So don't get frustrated, just remember this conversation.
Excellent point. It's about setting expectations up front with the buyers, the sellers, pretty much everybody involved in the transaction.
Going back to your well and septic discussion, one of the things to know is if you have the well and septic tested when you put it on the market or beforehand, the well flow that's required by the Muni is not the same well flow that's required by an FHA buyer. FHA
Right.
requires significantly higher,
Yeah,
so
what
you
is
may
it,
not be able to.
2 gallons a minute for FHA now?
I think it's about 3.
Just 3.
3? Okay.
So if it's less than that, you either can't go FHA or you have to have your sellers put in a holding tank.
Or you got to, yeah, maybe you need to frack it a little bit or something. Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Me.
Go ahead.
Me. Okay. When I take my CE classes, as long as the course names are different, am I okay?
No. And we had a very nasty experience with this just recently. One of our licensees, before she came to Keller Williams during the last renewal cycle, had taken a couple classes that were offered by employees at a different brokerage, different titles. She actually took them very close to each other. They seemed like very different classes to her. She got audited. Come to find out, the courses had the same course number. She got a wicked nasty gram from the real estate commission. I mean, they came down on her like a ton of bricks. It was very frightening. She was worried about losing her license or having it suspended. She ended up paying a $550 fine, and yeah, everything's going to be okay. She will probably they're deciding on this, whether they have it on the website or not, that she failed to complete her CE, because they do that sometimes, and it's on the website for like ever. So I think that this is an issue with the Real Estate Commission that they should address, and that they shouldn't allow different name course titles for the same number of courses, but they feel differently. They say that we are all independent contractors and need to know how to take care of our own business, and that it is totally on us to make sure we don't do this. So as you're tracking your courses, you know, hopefully most of you guys use those little envelopes we get like from First American Title or something. Man, check and make sure you don't have any of the same course numbers. Because it turned into a really ugly, nasty mess. And it is really scary for our licensee. Go ahead, Danny.
One more thing, in the year, or the period, I should say, that you have to take post-licensing in your first year of licensure, you cannot use post-licensing classes for ECE classes. Okay? They cannot be used for the same thing.
Or it's one or the other. Right. You can only take credit for it.
But during your post-licensing period,
Right.
you're not allowed to use those at all for ECE.
Okay, everybody get that? Perfect. Next.
Win-win sounds good, but I want my client to really win. Thanks for that one.
Perfect.
Is that a question?
Sort of. Yeah. I've been hearing more discussion lately about a brand of negotiating, which is kind of like pummeling the opponent. And we don't do that. You know, our philosophy really is that we want win-win or no deal. And that doesn't mean that you're caving in and giving up benefits for your client, or giving up position or dollars or anything like that. But it means that we're going to look at this with the long view. I propose that everybody think about every transaction that you would like everybody involved in that transaction to want to do another deal with you sometime in the future. The appraiser, the handyman, the other agent, the buyer, the seller, everyone. So I know that in the negotiations that I get involved in, not just on purchase and sales, but when we're trying to figure out some sort of a dispute, if we can actually get everybody looking towards a solution rather than just hammering the other side, it works out a lot better. Also keeping in mind that keeping the drama out of the situation works a lot better too. Go ahead.
Wow, really? Well, I was just thinking that if you ever have a question about it, like what you're saying, doing it to where you want everybody in the deal to want to do another deal with you, is just kind of like the golden rule, you know, about treating everybody like you want to be treated when you're on the other side of the deal. Because that's what people, you know, they take a different stance depending on if they're representing the buyer and the seller, and really it should be about getting the deal done and making sure everybody's covered instead of hammering the other guy. Because I see that a lot more, it seems like lately, a little more aggressiveness that way.
Yep.
And that is one thing it says in the AREC that most people don't realize, is it says that you are helping them get into a contract, but once they're in a contract, then your focus changes to getting it to a successful closing.
Right. And again, people, I bet all of you are feeling the same thing. I really feel the pressure ratcheting up, you know, out there right now. So this is just another thing to keep in mind. Excellent. Who's next? Okay, Jacob?
Hey, going back to bulletproofing the transaction, you just touched on the listing side.
Oh, yeah.
What sort of common clauses are you seeing in the additional terms and conditions and stuff like that, that you would consider
Oh, yeah, great.
bulletproofing the transaction?
I really recommend that everybody uses that clause about not sharing any inspections with, you know, without, what exactly is it? I got this clause from you years ago, Matt. No inspections or reports generated by any third party will be shared without written permission by buyer, seller, and their representatives. Because, I mean, you guys have all seen it. The seller agrees to do the health and safety, and maybe even the next category of repairs. The thing goes to underwriting, and the underwriter requires them to do the maintenance issues, which are just stupid.
The only problem with that is it's hard to enforce. Because even when we've had that clause, you know, then somebody goes, oh, you know, whoops.
Well, yeah, a lender asks the buyer for a copy of the
Well, it's just
inspection
another way to
report.
negotiate, right?
Well, the answer for that is I have no reports that I intend to give you.
Right, no,
It's not that I don't have any, I have none that I intend to
Right.
give you.
Well, I just wonder, like, if you have that in there and it gets there, is there a punishment you can give to the other side? No. right?
Yeah, the deal doesn't
You
close.
just say, if the contract goes into default, you jeopardize your earnest money if it was on the
Yeah.
other side.
It's really just another little layer of protection to help ensure that you get the deal closed.
Yeah, maybe that needs to be in there, that if you are responsible for releasing it, you lose the earnest.
But is it?
I mean, because there's no teeth in that.
There's no teeth to hold them in it. So.
Right.
The teeth is that both licensees explain to their principals the sense in doing it, that it's really for everybody's benefit once you're in contract.
And if the buyer releases it and there's any other required repairs, they can always tell the buyer.
Yeah,
If they
maybe the
want the
buyer's
house,
on
they
it.
have to
Yeah.
take care of those repairs.
That's good, I like that. So that's one of the main ones right there, Jake. Go ahead, Mary Jo.
There's a smaller broker in town who's telling her.
Like a little short person? That's dwell, not dwarf.
She is demanding of her agents that they release that to the lenders, and she's saying that is her office policy. And I fought and fought and fought, and it just went, and it didn't matter what we had in our contract.
Well,
So
she's more interested in being right than doing a good job for her clients.
Yes.
So,
Good to know.
yeah.
Mary Jo, it's her office policy to release home inspections to lenders?
To lenders.
Yeah.
And I just fought and fought and fought.
Well, there was a school of thought about 10 years ago that you weren't taking good care of your buyer if you didn't release it. But now it's gotten so out of control, I believe, with
Well, the appraisers have become home inspectors.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's absurd. And between the appraisers and the underwriters, it's just,
And I've
if you want this deal to actually close, you don't want them to see the report.
And I've talked to underwriters, they don't wanna see it. They'd I mean, if it's there and they know about it, they have to look
Right,
at it, but they'd
right.
rather not see it.
Yes, Joe?
As a new licensee, I seem to get hammered on by licensees at other companies that have been around forever, like they're taking advantage of me. Is there a new licensee anonymous where we can all get together and talk about the
Yeah, everybody meet in Joe Bell's office.
I've heard this a couple of times
Sure.
with some brand new licensees. I mean, what's a word of advice we can give to them?
Everybody goes through your ground.
Yeah, exactly.
You really, whoever said that, you're right, man, you stand your ground. You know, we have training and models and systems and mentors here that were certainly not available when I was a brand new agent. And I'm sure I got beat up, you know, and that my clients could have been better represented when I was a brand new agent. And that's just the way it was. But I don't think that's necessarily the case, man, if you're licensed here now. There's certainly a lot of us that you can come to for advice before you react
Make
to
sure you're
a
right before you
counter-offer.
stand your ground, though.
Yeah.
It kind of depends. July.
Do we have a stock mentor program here? Like when you come in, you have a mentor, you do the first 3 deals
Where's
with
Shayna?
them or something like that?
We just started this last Monday with Shayna Ackles as our launch coach. We have some people in the room right now that are signed up with her, and it's perfect. I think it's if you've done 6 deals or fewer, you're pretty much required to be in this program, and it is fantastic. Yeah, we've tried so many different versions of this over the last 6 years, and none of them we really had it together right, and I think we have it just perfect nailed. I think we have it just nailed.
Can you just tell me the basics of it?
You want
They
me
have to check it
Go
with
ahead.
You
her?
want me to jump in?
Yeah.
So brand new licensee comes into the business, their first 6 deals, they'll be working with Shayna. Now, our normal split is what it is in order to take care of Shayna, because it is her job. We reduce that split for what they're getting on those first 6 deals, okay? And that's the mentor program. Rather than going and working with another licensee and giving up 50% of your commission.
Right, which is how other
it's-
brokerages
yep,
do it.
Yep, exactly. So, she has a list of anybody brand new that's coming in, and she's connecting with them. We have the actual launch class starting, I think it's this week, later this week, out in Wasilla, from like 5 to 7 or 6 to 7:30.
Yeah, I think it's Wednesday and Thursday evenings,
Wednesday,
5 to
yep.
7 out in the valley.
And then here in town, it's gonna be from 9 AM to 11 AM on Monday, Tuesdays. So brand new licensees have somewhere they can go, and they're also coaching with her. Okay, and it's her only job. She's not selling or anything else. It is her job,
Yeah.
which I think is a beautiful setup
Great
compared
And
to.
the cost per transaction is so minor compared to this kind of thing that they've set up in other brokerages that I've heard about. And I don't know, those of you who don't know Shayna, make a point to get her to know her. She's
She's on
excellent,
it. She'll
really
be-
experienced,
she'll be
awesome.
great.
yeah, really, really thrilled to have her.
Yeah, in 2006, she closed, I think, like 114 transactions, so she's more than valid.
Nice, good.
Yeah. You have any more questions out there? Marco?
I apologize for being late, so if this was already asked. Have you seen any issues with the new changes to the purchase and sale agreement since it's come up?
Already been asked.
Okay. Moving right along.
It was kind of interesting because we did talk about a really negative situation we had because page 1 of that was not filled out correctly. You know, just go to somebody if you have any questions, you know, to get it, come see me, you know, and I can help you with that.
Did y'all talk about the, like when you do a repair addendum, it has a deadline space now to respond to it, and making sure that that corresponds with the purchase and sale agreement original one?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all did discuss that?
We did not talk about that, but that's a really good point.
Well, that's the one
Yeah.
thing that we've noticed is,
Yeah.
you know, kind of a conflict if you put a different expiration date on there, and then there's another one on the original purchase and sale agreement, there's gonna be a conflict if there's an argument about it, like which one is. You're already going? I'm sorry, I didn't know.
So we're getting into springtime, there's a shortage of inventory, there's inevitably we're gonna run into multiple offers. How should people be handling multiple offer situations?
Excellent. I had a series of emails with, Beth wouldn't mind if I talked about this with her not being here, even with Beth, who's handled probably hundreds of multiple offer situations. She wanted to be sure that she didn't, you know, get in a mess on this. She's got the listing, she's written an offer, and she's got another offer coming in. I've heard people get all kinds of excited and bent out of shape and twisted on these things. And Beth asked me what I thought she should do, and I told her I thought she was fine just to give everybody a deadline by what time they're going to have their best offer written, present them to the seller at that time, and let the seller make a choice. As it turns out, the seller's out of town, is not going to be able to look at these anyway for a day or two, so it gives both parties plenty of time to get their absolute best offer together. In the past, people have wanted to have the broker involved to present the one that's written by the licensee. I'm certainly willing to do that, but I don't think it's necessary by any means.
I think it depends on who's on the other side too. I had one of those a couple of years ago with Jamie Harvey, and my seller was in the hospital, and he and I met at the hospital to present to her, and we showed each other our offers first, and mine was better, so.
Yeah, I don't, go ahead.
What do you think about putting, on the new listing, putting language in the remarks field that says, seller will look at, you know, all offers on, not before Sunday. You know, if it came on Wednesday, say, because there just seems to be multiple offers right away and the sellers are
And you're afraid you might
reluctant.
sell it too fast?
Yeah.
Yeah, without getting your best
they wanna-
offer?
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all, putting in the private remarks. Mm-hmm.
Private-
Is it still open?
Yeah.
Is it still open until the final signature is done? So
It
can
is.
somebody
It
jump in
is.
still until the final signature?
Yep. And this has been coming up more often now. Someone is in a counter offer stage and another offer comes in. And you better quick make a phone call, send a text and an email and let people know what's going on. That's one of the nice things about text and emails is that you've got, you know, time, date, stamped record of it.
And a verbal does not count, because they can say, we accept the counter, and if the seller hasn't had a chance to sign it and something else comes in.
Yeah. And if it's back, you know, I mean, this is just the kind of stuff we're seeing more of. Just last week, we dealt with a situation where buyer was going to accept the counter that the seller had sent back out when another offer came in that was better than that counter. The listing licensee texted, emailed, and called like immediately to the other licensee and said, that counter's no good anymore. We're getting another offer in. If you guys want to stay in the game, you know, you got to up yours. Maybe not. Maybe they didn't say it like that. You have to improve your offer, I believe, is the phrase. I think the other licensee might have said that. Yeah.
See it on Facebook now.
Oh, that's bad. Yeah. Broker Butch says. Yes.
When offers are getting multiple offers, you're starting to see ones that go over the asking price. How am I handled later through the appraisal if the appraisal time?
Great question. This is what I suggest is if you're representing the buyer and your buyer is willing to go above the list price and your buyer is financially able to do this, put in your offer that the buyer is willing to make up any shortfall between sale price and appraisal in cash at closing. Because if I'm the seller and I see that, I go cha-ching. But if I've got a $250,000 listing and a deal at, an offer that comes in at 270 and it's, you know, FHA 97 or 96.5% financed, I'm thinking, this probably, you know, if I'm getting good advice from my licensee, I know that this probably isn't gonna work out. You know, especially with appraisers typically being, you know, 6 months behind the market.
And on that note, taking it one step further, I know we have the Real Estate Commission and NAR and all these associations that kind of help us lobby and do things and correct items. The appraisers, we had one that came in $10,000 short, and the comps were there, we showed them the comps, but still would not change it. Valley appraiser from Houston doing an appraisal on property we had downtown.
Wow.
Now, at some point, somebody in the rail system or the select appraiser from the Cracker Jack box system has got to be able to say this is a value-added service, because we're not seeing it.
Yeah.
We've had 3 now. We've got another one that we're selling for $5,000 more. We've got an offer on it for $5,000 more than anything that's even remotely close, or $2,000 more than anything that's remotely close to the same subdivision. And it's just a little St. Clair or one of these Montclair condos.
Oh, yes.
So there's not a whole lot of flexibility. We know a good chance, because the last 6 months, we're in an upswing. It's gonna be tough to get the appraiser. Is there anybody out there that watches over the appraiser community?
That comes down to your lender to a certain extent, because they still have their list of who they.
Well, yeah, just trying to get somebody yanked off a list
Just
is.
God is the only person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share the Kevin Cross dirty secrets of appraisals. One is I remove the lockbox if I think there's any question, where I have to meet them out there. I have to let them in, and by the way, these are the comps that I use, and let me show you these for this spectacular, I don't know if you saw this, but this is a really great feature about this property kind of deal. And the other thing is that there's a list of appraisers that I just don't like, and I have conflicts of interest with those individuals, and I just let the lender know. I don't have to say what that conflict of interest is. It's that I don't like them or whatever it is, or they come in low. But hey, I have a conflict of interest, it's business affiliated with these individuals, you just need to make sure the rel systems know, and then I don't get those people.
Good? I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, they won't put somebody that you have conflict of interest with, so you're not required to disclose what it is.
Mark?
Your seller can get another appraisal, can't
Right.
And there's the other.
But hey, if it's a matter of $10,000 or $15,000 on the price and $650 in the appraisal, it might be worth a gamble.
You can split it with them, or you and the lender can split it.
When you've got a multiple offer and the price goes above and your seller's paying closing costs on behalf of the buyer, that
Right.
can always create a conflict
Sure.
too. It's important to have
Mhm.
price and terms can be renegotiated, make sure that the buyer can pay more of their own closing costs
Right.
if it comes to that.
Right.
That's,
Absolutely would put language in there saying that the amount of closing costs to be reduced amount of any shortfall between the appraisal and the purchase price. And you have to ensure that the buyer can do it.
Because we're seeing a lot of things being pushed above the
Mhm.
price to cover some or all
Yep.
of the closing
Yep.
costs.
And appraisers are really having a hard time with that.
Yeah.
They're seeing that that is an artificially inflated price, so.
and if you get all the way to that point and the buyer
Yeah.
can't come up with another $3 or $4 grand, then
Right.
that's just not fair to the seller.
Well, it's
They
the
shouldn't be
market.
accepting
Right.
that high offer.
You gotta take that into consideration.
Although I've been seeing a
Do
lot
we
of
have any more
appraisers.
little questions out there? Is that it? Okay, any just off the wall questions?
Are you seeing a lot of escalation clauses in today's market?
Mhm.
I've seen a few of them.
Sure. Yep.
Here we are.
Everybody know what that means, an escalation clause? David? It's okay to speak up, I know you're new, it's okay. Escalation clause is, when you write an offer and as the buyer's representative, you're concerned that there's gonna be more offers coming in, or maybe you've already been told that it's a multiple offer situation. And so you say that your client is willing to pay $1,000 or $500 above any other verifiable offer, net offer, up to a certain price that you put in there.
Now, what do they have to do to verify that? Do they have to show you the other offer?
Show page 1 and then the other terms and conditions.
And we always put purchase price to be $225 or $2,000 above any other verifiable offer, up to but not to exceed X.
Yeah.
So I always put a base price in there in case the other offer comes in at $222, you know, or
Right.
$230 or whatever it is, you have your base price in there.
And I really recommend you have something in there about the net price, because they might have a higher offer price, but they might be paying a whole bunch of closing costs, which makes it a lower net.
I would always write it, like you say, based on net to the seller.
Right.
And I would demand